the founder and CEO. We have started an online series to engage, to educate, to reinvigorate our community of both really innovative and caring health and wellness practitioners and patients right across Canada. So today we're with Elke Rubach with Rubach Wealth. And today we wanted to introduce her. I've known her for a little while. She's an incredible human being, philanthropist, and businesswoman. And today we wanted to talk about personal finance and how critically important it is now more than ever to take a long-term and holistic view on your personal finances, which really impacts everybody right across the country. And most importantly, to create a really easy to understand and actionable plan that can be immediately applied in light of all the uncertainty that's unrolling, unraveling right around us. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Elke to our community. So Elke, I would love to learn a bit more about you and why you do the amazing work that you do.
Thanks, Dan, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Elke Rubach, a reformed lawyer who spent many years in the international mergers and acquisition department of a big law firm in Canada and abroad. Loved the adrenaline, the challenges and everything, but there was always a little something missing, and I wanted to be able to bring some kind of help to people or really give my holistic view of life to my clients. And somehow that led me into the world of personal financial planning. Started the firm 8 years ago, have built a team since. And really what we want to do is help people gain clarity and direction when it comes to their personal finances. Something that we noticed early on is people make financial decisions without a clear plan or a trajectory to follow. And many people buy absolutely phenomenal financial instruments, but they don't talk to each other. And then the level of noise and complexity is such that nobody knows exactly what they're doing and how things apply to their case or their situation. And what we really do is we use plain English, and we want to make sure that people need what they have and they have what they need, depending on what they want to do. So we're not in the world of telling you, you know what, Dan, you should do this. I spend more time understanding what's important to you and what it is that you want to do as an individual, as a family, as a whatever size of unit you are. And then we can show you ways how to get there. So it's really down to earth, simple. You know, a good financial plan doesn't need to be incomprehensible way of gaining an understanding and control of what you're doing with your finances. So that's me and us in a nutshell.
I understand. So you had a pretty dramatic career change. Can you explain, what your motivation was again behind that?
I think it's a personal story. I come from a family of four, and when we were, there's a huge age difference between all of us, but when we were young, my dad died and he didn't have a financial plan in place. And I saw firsthand how my mom had to figure it out by herself with 4 kids, private schools, etc. A different reality in Mexico. It's very different. Public schools are not as strong as they are here. But anyway, she had to figure it out. And I just saw that it would have been so much easier if he had done what he could have done when we had the opportunity, and yet he didn't. So there are no regrets, there are no hard feelings, but if I can help people avoid that, much better.
That definitely resonates. So what is a holistic family planner? It sounds like you've carved out your own niche, which is really exciting.
It is, and it's fascinating. I mean, having the legal background helps a ton, the legal mind. But I also see that, the lawyer will come up with fantastic strategy that will work for, depending on the discipline of law they do, and they'll document it and off you go. The tax person will make sure that your taxes are optimized, efficient, etc. for next year, maybe long term, but lawyers and accountants don't necessarily talk. Then you have the financial advisor looking for the best rate of return, but they don't have a tax strategy in place beyond the tax efficiencies that the investment instruments have. And then the insurance person will just, talk about what they do. What we try to do is we blend all these disciplines at no cost to the client, but we realize that the end product is so much stronger. Our clients right now are going through COVID, and not one has called in a panic, because we didn't know it was going to be so bad. We didn't know it was going to be so soon, but all our plans are crisis proof, and knowing that even if something drops right now, it's bound to go back, and no particular panic sell needs to happen. So people are taken care of, and that's been huge.
So it really does sound like there's like a massive value with just taking a big step back and realizing that everything really does fold into each other, that your entire plan can't just be looked at in silos. Why do you think it's been that way for so long? Because it sounds like it's like made to the detriment of the customer, the family, or the individual. So why do you think it's been that way for so long and so frequently?
I think it's been like that because until now it's worked, right? And people have not really spent the time asking the tough questions as to why are you implementing this? How does it look long term? And again, the smartest people today tell me, you know what, at the time it sounded great. It sounded like a good option, but we're all busy and we forget to connect the dots. And then what we're left with is like a bunch of little points and some kind of graph, and we don't know exactly how they connect. So this is, it's not necessarily a slower process. It's very, very, very simple. My job is just to understand what exactly is that you want to achieve, and make sure that I can connect with the different disciplines and make some kind of sense of what everything that's going on. So we're happy to work with other professionals. We have our own professionals on speed dial. So that's not an issue. It's really leading with a client's interest that, first and foremost, and it's a conversation. It's a real simple, easy conversation, can go very quickly or as the person needs.
That's great. And it's a long-term relationship. Like what's been the average engagement? It must be years upon years. Like you've helped individuals and families to create plans so the relationships are really run indefinite, right? So what does that type of relationship look like, and how does it change over time?
You know what, we are in the relationship business, and we just happen to have access to financial instruments. I can tell you, other than people moving away, very few clients have left. And I think it's an absolute blessing and a huge responsibility when you take on a client, because if you're doing your job right, you're looking, with a 360 lens. We want to make sure that the client, and that's where the tagline came from, right? It's you're not the client. It's yes, you are my client, of course, but everything we do will impact someone. So let's make sure that all those impacts are taken care of. I can tell you, people, young families that come and are very shy, like, can I work with you? What's your minimum investment that you'll take on? We don't work like that. We work with people who want to be helped and don't need to be convinced. We're not charging planning fees right now because it's a time where people have the advantage that they can get clarity, and people need guidance and direction. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the $1 million or the $2 million or $10 million. If we can help a family, that to us is much more valuable than the $3 you can make out of a sale. We want to make sure that the family as a nucleus is protected, that everything makes sense. And you never know, right? This family might have a friend who is in the higher net worth bracket. That's fine. We're happy to help. Something that has been happening a lot, our clients, in their 40 to 60, we do their own planning. We don't do their asset management, and that's fine in some cases. Or in some cases, they do want us to do it. We can do that too. But something that has been very handy to them is saying, can you look into our parents' portfolio? We want to reassure them that they're not going to outlive their savings, and that somebody is there for them when they have to connect to the bank or answer questions or figure out how to do transfers. You know, things that for somebody as busy as a Gen X would be natural. You know, you pick up the phone, you go online, you push through buttons, you know, punch in your pin and you're good to go. For a boomer, it might not be that obvious. And the peace of mind that we bring to our Gen X clients, you know, that we're looking after their parents is very valuable. So it's really a long-term relationship business where we want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And it's in plain English.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what is happening right now at Rubach Wealth in light of everything that's been happening over the past 2 months, and which is likely to continue for the next several? Like, what is your company? You know, what's your company strategy? You did mention just recently that you're offering free assessments, which is fantastic. So hopefully some of our viewers are able to reach out and take you up on that. And you can please leave your contact details at the end, of course. But what is your company doing? Like, how are you rallying together internally, and how are you rallying for your existing clients, and how are you showing up for them?
So we did have a quick campaign, if you want to call it. We reached out to all our clients to make sure they were okay, first and foremost, because anxiety levels are high. And it was literally just a hi, how are you? And it's always nice to connect with your clients again, because they're your friends. And that's gone on for probably 6 to 8 weeks. Some people call us again, just literally to check in and see how they're doing. We're taking advantage of this time too, that we're home, to call some people, you know, to confirm their beneficiaries, make sure that their plans are up to date, make sure that their wills are up to date as well. We have our famous lawyers who are famous for not having wills, and we're trying to get that done as well. We don't do it internally, but we work with lawyers that figure that part out. And it's really that side of the business has been taken care of. It's just a human touch point, and it's fine. From the business itself and going forward, I think time has proven us wrong that a long-term view of financial planning is much more valuable and peace-giving than trying to challenge and time the market. We are very vocal, going out and talking to people. This is a time to go back to basics. This is your golden opportunity to gain control of what's going on with your finances. Particularly for spouses who are not in charge of the finances. There's always someone in the couple that kind of takes the lead, and it's normal, you know, the division of labor. But even if you're not the one who's in charge of the finances, you need to know what's going on, because you never know. Things can change, and they can change very quickly. And it's just revisiting what's important to the family, going out, figuring out the values, and shake the plan and move forward. We don't know when this is going to be over. We don't know what it's going to look like. But I think the only thing I'm seeing will prevail and should continue is the soul-searching exercise of understanding what's important to your family, and make sure that once you dial it back, your values can transcend to next generations.
That sounds like a really valuable program now more than ever. So it really comes down to like getting educated and simplifying your strategy, and then being in control, and not just if you have a spouse or partner, making sure that you both are collaborating and that you're both informed, and you're both well aligned, so you can both plan it, put it, codify it, so to speak, and then actually go and live it. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, totally. And the two things I see very often are, one is, you know, the business owner, the entrepreneur, who is running a million miles an hour, making sure that the business is, even at the best of times, right? The business is thriving, the business is growing, the market is expanding. And one spouse thinks that the business owner, because he or she is the business person, has control of the finances, and then the other one thinks that, well, I thought you had it, I thought you had it, and the ball falls between the two, and people didn't know that I didn't know that you didn't know. So we
Sounds like my
work
old
with
softball team.
exactly, you, me, no, you, but, and then you lost.
I won't name names, but yes, I can relate absolutely. So you'd say
Or
like the best first step at this point is just like speak to your partner and reach out for help, and just like, even though things are everyone's stressed and everyone's incredibly anxious, but the first step is just to like reflect and reach out.
yeah, and it's kind of one of those problems that just by going like this, the problem is not going to go away, right? So it's best to address it. It's honestly a very easy process. It's a small, short conversation, and we compare it a lot with doctors. When you go to the doctor and you're going into surgery, as a surgeon, the surgeon is not going to explain to you exactly which vein will be connected to what vein, because then you're going to be on the floor fainted, right? They just need to know that the goal is to keep you healthy, that there's going to be surgery, that, generally speaking, A will be connected to B. And if for you it's important to do A, that's what they'll do, right? It'll be easy, it'll be smart, it'll be effective, and it'll be painless. Ready? And it's a matter of trusting the person you're working with, right? That's huge. Mm-hmm. The other case I see too that happens a lot, and I forgot to mention, is this is also the time for those who do have a financial plan in place, particularly those who have a tax plan in place, to sit down with their spouses and make sure that the spouse understands what's going on. It's very common that I look at spouse A, ask, do you know what's going on with the tax plan? He goes, generally speaking, yes. Okay. Then I look at the spouse, do you know what's going on here? Absolutely not. Then we start talking about it, and I said, do either of you know how to untangle this structure if there's a need to bring it down? And the answer is, every time, we have no clue. So we have to make sure that any tax structure in place, any plan in place, is understandable on the way up and on the way down, because untangling a structure can be very, very expensive. So that's why I say a good financial plan doesn't necessarily need to be incomprehensible. The best plan is the one you use and the one that works for you. Same thing, the surgery we're talking about, and since a lot of doctors are listening, they know that you don't have to go too complex or go more complex than what you really need to achieve the goal you want. And it can be fast, it can be slow.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What are the different facets of the plan that you're referencing? So it's a tax plan, insurance plan, financial plan. Can you just provide a high level of what those different elements look like?
For sure. So something we spend a bit of time doing is figuring out cash flows, because any recommendation has to work within your cash flow and your abilities. So insurance is in place because a lot of people can use insurance as a tax planning strategy, but until we know it's an option for you, we don't know. So you need to literally give a little bit of and do your medical exams and figure out how insurable you are and what your status is, so if you can play with that tool or not. Once that is happening, at the same time, we're making sure that we're listing all your assets. It's a discovery session where we understand everything you have, everything you owe, and more importantly, what you want to do. As I said at the beginning, I don't want to tell you what you should do, just tell me what you want to do, and I can tell you with what you have, can you do it? Or do we need to change behaviors to make sure that you can get there at some point? There are no unreasonable goals, there are only unreasonable timelines. So if we all work together, we can do that. So you need a will. Why? You need powers of attorney. For your health and for your property. You need insurance to make sure that everything you've accumulated is protected, that you can transfer it to your children and you don't leave half to the government. And kudos to the government that has responded very well to the situation. But ultimately, probably we all agree that we'd rather leave our assets with our families than with the government, right? And it's that, after insurance, and we talk about what investment philosophy do you have? Where do you want to go? Let's talk about diversification. Let's asset allocation. And that's an ongoing conversation. A lot of people are obsessed with the rate of return, and this investment is giving me 23%. Well, if you're not efficient from a tax perspective, you're leaving half on the table already. And if you're not diversified, look at what happened a month ago. The market tanked 40%, and many fortunes were lost. So, I mean, yes, the market will come back. We don't know how, we don't know when, but let's make sure that you're in a position that you'll be better placed for the uptick of the market than just going out and selling everything in a panic and then locking in a loss. It's the ultimate infusion of common sense. First, you deal with what you can't control, and then you deal with what you can control.
Yeah. Can you describe like 3 client stories to me in the audience in terms of who you typically help, and what are some scenarios you like to highlight of people when either who reach out or when they reach out, and why?
Absolutely. We work a lot with young families, or young professionals, young families, because although it looks like you can't do much for them at the beginning, it's a lot easier to instill healthy financial habits from the beginning than fix them when they're a lot older. When it's, I mean, technically too late. Too late is really when you can't do anything, and that's when you're dead. But a story there was with a young couple, both working. Then they had their first child. She stopped working, and he had a very stressful job. One day she calls me and tells me that, she just asked me, like, is my husband insured? And I said, yeah, why? Like, are we covered? And I couldn't understand, like, there was no connection with her conversation or her questions. I'm like, what happened? So I just got a call from his office, and he landed flat on his face. He just fainted. And well, that we found out later that there was more than fainted. He had a complete depletion of energy and went down. They thought it was an aneurysm. It was not, but at the moment it was scary. And she had a 1-year-old, and he was 36. And when would you think at 36 that this could happen? Now, professionals think that disability insurance is only if you have a car accident. No, the biggest cause for disability payments is psychological issues. Burnout is real. So we want to make sure that people don't have to go through that. Another story we have, as I mentioned, it's the incomprehensible tax situation where the couple had a very good plan in theory. They were sheltering, let's not to give crazy examples, but they were sheltering $1 million from CRA, and unwinding the structure would have cost them $750,000, and a lot of grief for the spouse without knowing what to do. So that does not include all the professional piece. And the other thing we have too is, we deal with a lot of professional corporations, and we deal with their tax and estate plan. Just making sure that all T's are crossed and I's dotted, and they know their options. So those are really a lot of the cases we deal with, and it's just a conversation.
Great. Seems like the right place to start. So how do you see your sector changing in light of what's happening right now with COVID-19?
That's anyone's guess. I think there's a need to go back to basics. I think it's going to go back to a more human conversation. When we deal with boomers and people who came from war, to them, the shiny car or the big trip is not that important for them. Putting food on the table was more important, and making sure they would give a good start to their kids. I think we're in a way going back to that from a values perspective. Gen Xers are realizing that a lot of the expenses that were incurred are really not necessary, and actually a better idea to cut just to reach a peace of mind that our parents got and our generation has not been able to achieve. And millennials are very interesting because they are not so keen on ownership. They like lifestyle, but most want to keep it simple and want to make sure that there's value in what they're getting, as opposed to, and they're willing to pay, but there has to be value, and they're much more informed. Information is so available that it's a much more educated class. Now, in reality is we don't know what's out there. There's tons of unemployment. Anxiety is through the roof. We were talking about this, domestic violence is unprecedentedly high. I think we're all at home doing our thing, continuing our days, and those of us who are lucky enough to have a business or not having been forced to close or laid off, etc., we're going to go out, and it's going to be a new reality that will sink in once we see it. I do expect a lot of vacancies in commercial properties. I do expect a lot of bankruptcies, and I've started seeing them, and a lot of unemployment. So I think it's time to close ranks and make sure that we focus on community first, and make sure that we're helping our close ones, people that you interact with, because that's the only way that we will move forward. That's a huge advantage of business owners and entrepreneurs. We are used to risks, we are used to uncertainty, and I think it'll be that class that will be in charge of raising the tide and allowing all the boats to float. The government can't do everything. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see how people will behave later on.
Hopefully everyone's a heck of a lot nicer. Not to say they're not nice to begin with, but I think everyone's become much more conscious and neighborly and mutually supportive. And I think that if there is a silver lining, it's that everyone definitely appreciates the simple things and the people in their lives, and maybe with a little bit less noise, which is, in a way what you were describing, just by going back to the basics, we can see ourselves through these challenges and our families and our communities. So on that note, I really appreciate you taking the time, spending the time with our community today. I found it very educational, a little reassuring, and definitely looking forward to staying in touch. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Absolutely. I'm always a phone call away, 647-808-7700. I will put, I'll send you a little note with my contact details. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. I would say LinkedIn is the place to go. So if they find me, I'm happy to connect with everyone. Elke Rubach, simple, ELKERUBACH, LinkedIn. And an email away, right? It's these days it's easy to find anyone. So thank you very much, Dan. I look forward to helping anyone that is a little bit confused or just wants to have a conversation. It takes nothing. And that's it. Good luck. And I hope it warms up soon, because this in May makes no sense. It's cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, here's for warmer days and a bright outcome in the near future. And I'm glad to know that you're there for our community. So anyone who wants to reach out, please do. And we'll certainly include the contact details in the postings to come. So thank you very much again, Elke. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you. Take care.
You too.